Now, why would someone into lolly want children to transition? Indeed, yes, Oh my god. Actually give an opinion. Actually say what you think. Look up the 216 errors in the WPath files. That list of 216 errors does not exist. No. We've got another executive order to do with trans care for minors, basically. And I want to see what vaush says. Listen, every time something happens, all I can think is like, yeah, but what does the lolly guy, what does he think? But yeah, Trump madness continues. There'll be executive orders about trans people, then I will be interested in what's going on.
Trump signs executive order aimed at curtailing gender transitions for kids.
Aimed at. I mean, maybe it's honest in this case, who knows? It's always worded in the worst way possible, though. It's gotta be worded as if it's an attack.
There it is. Can't believe it took him over a week to get to it. Trump signs executive order aimed at curtailing gender transitions for everyone.
AP. Associated Press. Yeah, I don't know much about Associated Press. Are they good? Are they bad? Don't know. Now, why would someone into lolly want children to transition? Indeed, yes, Executive orders aren't law. It can be undone by the next president. Yeah, but there's like potentially 4 years of this. Will it improve things? Who knows? We'll have to see.
Under age 19. Not 18? Okay. Section 1, policy and purpose calls trans...
Oh, Aaron Reed, here we go. Straight away, we're on Blue Sky. Reading, oh, what's Aaron Reed got to say about this? Like, amazing. Vaush is pretty captured by Aaron Reed. I've seen him cover her stuff before, cover her takes on trans stuff. Aaron Reed is a hack piece of shit. Complete worthless journalist. Every kind of bias, every kind of problem that can come from this kind of bias. Like, look at this. Detransition is rare. 1 to 4% in most studies, and regret even lower. In most studies, the number that these studies come to is always very incomplete. You always get problems like people will ghost their clinic and then not be part of the data set that constitutes detransitioners, meaning that the actual number they're giving is not really accurate to reality. And here we go. Policy and purpose calls transgender care maiming and states that children will soon regret being trans. Well, some of them possibly will. That's the problem. And like 4% of kids transition then regret it. That's still not good. You know what I mean? There's problems like straight away with Aaron Reed's shit here. You know what I mean? Vaush takes all his trans takes and extreme activist lies. Yep, many of these people do. No hint of actual self-thought, even though people like Vaush are supposed to be like the self-thinkers, you know, the ones that are like seeing the actual truth and stuff like that. It's really not true. I don't know. I don't even know how, like, I don't know. Does Vaush not seem very kind of lazy in some ways?
Gender care maiming and states that children will, quote, soon regret.
And it's interesting what she focuses on as well. Bear in mind, has Vaush even read the thing? I have no idea.
Being trans. Detransition is, this is Aaron speaking. Detransition is rare, 1 to 4% in most studies, and regret even lower.
Isn't he into Shota, not lolly? I don't know. People use the word lolly. Call it a colloquialism, call it whatever you want, I guess.
It intends to use withholding of funds and interpretation of laws to target trans youth nationwide. Section 2, definition includes...
He's not even reading. He's reading Aaron Reed's thing from it and then just agreeing with it. At least that's what it seems. I've only seen 40 seconds of this video, but that's very much what it seems.
People who are legal adults, 18 years of age, sets the attempts at a ban at those under the age of 19. It also says the federal government will call gender-affirming care chemical and surgical mutilation. Section 3, this section rescinds policies that rely on WPath guidance.
Good. WPath is nuts. I had someone that used to appear in my chat that's been on my channel that was a WPath member called Amaya Deakins. She goes on Twitter Spaces with this utter retard called Pissed Off Lawyer to talk about wanting to threaten to kill fucking Fred Sargent and shit, or tell him to kill himself and stuff. You've got videos of Marcy Bowers talking about how none of the kids that they transitioned that started between 9 and 11 have ever orgasmed. You've got that Joanna Olsen Kennedy telling people like Clementine Breen's parents that she's going to kill herself when she wasn't at risk of that by her own admission. Like sitting on studies when they don't come out the way she wants, seemingly. I guess we don't know, but that's the inference. You know what I mean? Huge problems with WPATH. And we're just kind of we're just kind of blowing over any of that. Like rescinds policies that rely on WPATH guidance. Well, what do you think of that, Aaron? Oh, you're not going to say.
Section has no age limit, so this could apply to adults and have a big impact on adult care nationwide. It also tells the HHS secretary to publish a junk science.
And like, would I think it's bad if adults can't get as much care as they could? Potentially. The other problem is, this is kind of what we have to expect because we pushed so hard on this like kids stuff and other things like sports and that. And it just wasn't what people wanted. It wasn't resonating with people. It was kind of bothering them even. So like, how much does someone like Erin Reed have to shoulder the blame? I mean, she's someone that supports transitioning children and has been propagandizing this to the point where people like Vaush, people like Luxander, whoever the fuck else, will just read their shit and say, here we go. Well, that's the trans opinion. That's all you need to know. Well, no, that's one trans person who was extremely fucking captured, who has monetary incentive to lie about this shit. And you're a fucking rube, if anything. You're a fucking mark.
Science review that will call trans people, quote, identity confused. So a lot of them think they're cats and
publish a junk science review. Like, what? Is that true? You're going to have to trust their word on it. They don't want you to read the official things. They want you to read their take on it, obviously. It's the same with Erin Reed. She doesn't want you to look at the actual thing. She wants you to read her take on it. And she knows, she must know by now, that if she posts this kind of stuff on Blue Sky, people like Vaush are going to look at it and completely uncritically parrot it. Is Vaush going to go against anything that Erin Reed says? I mean, he's just reading it at the moment, but hey, let's see.
dogs, you know? Can't fault them on that analysis.
Wait, someone said that Queensland, because I've always been hearing that Australia's kind of the opposite side of the coin to someone like the UK or now Trump's America, you know what I mean?
Section 4. This section tells every agency that provides research grants, including to med schools, that it will no longer be able to receive federal funds if it provides trans youth care. Typically, you would need Congress to do this. This would end most...
Is this a hint towards undemocratic or something? I mean, presidential executive orders, particularly democratic? Possibly not, but hey. This would end most trans youth care done at the top tier. See, everything she's saying here, I'm just like, well, good. I'm not for the trans youth stuff. Like, I don't fucking know, man. What do you want me to say?
Trans youth care done at top tier hospitals. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Okay, listen. He doesn't need to actually listen to anything, it seems. Just, what does Erin Reed think? That's what I think. That's ridiculous. This is the opposite of, like, you know, being discerning. Like, why the fuck do these people watch Vaush if he's just a mouthpiece for Erin Reed? It's nuts. Hi, I'm the Queenslander. Yes, yesterday it was announced that HRT puberty blockers would be banned. Oh, nice. Wow. Yeah, I've always been hearing that Australia is like very much the other way around. They never orgasm. Yeah, there's a video of Marcy Bowers saying that boys that they started transition on aged between 9 and 11, aka Tanner stage 2, weren't orgasming, like none of them, by the time they were finished. There's videos out there of all this kind of shit. Like, it's probably in like a whole bunch of my different videos because I keep bringing it up on like, on different things. It's not enough, but this order is the most a president can do unilaterally, I think. Yeah, probably. I mean, hey. Have you seen the spring 2025 WPATH X Nambler fashion? I can't tell if you're joking or not.
This will fuck over international trans care. Oh, well, you can always go to Thailand, I suppose. Is this making my eggs cheaper? Section 5. This...
See what I mean? Oh, well, why don't you concentrate on the economy? Well, I think the idea is a government has lots of different people in there so that they can care about lots of different things at once.
Section tells Health and Human Services to take regulatory actions, which could include excuse me, Medicaid blocking, clinical abuse laws, drug use reviews, quality, safety, and oversight powers, essential health benefits requirements, i.e. removing them. And now I'm waiting on her to...
Admittedly, is beset by overweening arrogance. Yep, true. What does overweening mean? I've never heard that. Oh, wow. Hey, learned a new word. Thank you so much. Yeah, I wonder if the price of eggs ever dropped under Joe Biden, but Vaush wasn't complaining about the price of eggs during Joe Biden, and he's only mentioning it now because he's trying to hint at the idea that this isn't something they should be focusing on. They should be focusing on making prices go down, which, I don't know. Is that the only thing a government's supposed to care about? I don't personally think so.
Post the next screenshot here. White House dropped the EO. I'll keep following through it with Erin Reed. You know, I like her more than I like the current White House administration.
Oh, there it is. There it is. Unwavering trust in someone who's a liar. Like, you're a fucking shill, Vaush. You're a moron. You're actually an idiot.
This is one of the issues where Dems are actually a lot better than Republicans. Yes, but don't forget that Democrats in an, either ill-fated or malicious attempt to win over Trump-disliking Republicans basically stopped talking about trans people throughout the Biden administration. Spineless motherfucker. But yes, they are obviously better than Republicans on this issue. Wait, did Snap get frozen? Man is on 7 crises behind. White House confirms Medicaid is down. I thought it came back up. Whatever, one thing at a time. Too many crises. That's kind of the point. Section 6, this section says that TRICARE will no longer cover gender-affirming care for youth. I believe this was already the case from the recent law passed through the NDAA. Gotcha. Okay, I'm not that patient a man. I do have the publication here.
Way, there we go. So we read all the Aaron Reed stuff first, and then we do it. And then he's probably going to steal a bunch of our takes. How nice. How nice.
Section 7, requirements for insurance carriers. The director of the Office of Personnel Management, as appropriate and consistent with applicable law, shall include provisions in the FEHB and Postal Service health benefits that specify electrical care as well, exclude coverage for pediatric transgender surgeries or hormone treatments, and negotiate to obtain appropriate corresponding reductions in FEHB and PSHB premiums. Okay, so just going after these like specific types of government insurance to make sure they don't cover pediatric trans.
They think Democrats actually believe in the trans shit. Well, I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell what anyone believes a lot of the time.
Care as well. Section 8, directives to the DOJ. Ooh, here's the spicy part. The Attorney General, that's Pam Bondi, or will be, shall, she got through, right? She Attorney General yet? They approved her, right? No, they haven't. She's still the nominee. Okay, they'll get her in. Review DOJ enforcement of Section 116, Title 18, U.S. Code, and prioritize enforcement of protection against female genital mutilation. Convene states, attorneys general, and other law enforcement officers to coordinate the enforcement of laws against female genital mutilation across all American states and territories. Prioritize investigations and take appropriate action to end deception of consumers, fraud, and violation of the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act by any entity that may be misleading the public about long-term side effects of chemical and surgical mutilation. In consultation with the Congress, work to draft, propose, and promote legislation to enact the private right of action for children and the parents of children whose healthy body parts have been damaged by medical professionals practicing chemical and surgical mutilation, which should include a lengthy statute of limitations, and prioritize investigations and take appropriate action to end child abuse practices by so-called sanctuary states that facilitate stripping of custody from their parents who support the healthy development of their own children, including by considering the application of the Parental Kidnapping Prevention Act and recognize constitutional rights. Okay, so this means that the DOJ is going to be taking effort to prosecute people who provide trans-affirming care for youth, is going to set aside policy and open up the doors for lawsuits against...
I hope below zero. Yeah, not a Vaush fan. Jesus Christ. I don't trust anyone that is, like, as far as I could throw them.
doctors who provide pediatric trans care on the grounds of surgical malpractice with an especially long statute of limitation, and prevent trans youth from being given to one parent over the other in like child custody cases on the grounds that one of those parents is not affirming of their trans identity, but the other one is. So for example, if your parents are split and the court's deciding who to send you to, and one parent is saying, well, no, you're my kid and you're not trans, you're mentally ill, whatever, and the other parent's affirming, that can no longer be used as grounds to argue that you should be in the care of the person who, or the parent who affirms your identity. Section.
Again, it all sounds like good things to me. I'm sorry. What am I supposed to say? I'm not down with kids transitioning. And I'm honestly a little bit suspicious of anyone that is. Like, why is vaush down with that shit? I'd love to ask someone like vaush why he's down with this shit. I mean, I know what kind of answer I'd get. Something about these people, what is it? These people trying to be themselves. Oh, well, if you don't do it, they'll kill themselves because the only way to justify sterilizing people, I guess, is to be like, well, they'll be dead otherwise. And it's like, okay, brilliant, amazing. How often do trans kids die? How often does a kid kill themselves because they had their World of Warcraft account or whatever taken away from them? You know what I mean? I'm just waiting for him to start opining on this shit and whether he's just going to follow the line with Aaron Reed or even attempt to like bring his own actual analysis into this, which I didn't see happening. I'm sorry.
9, enforcing adequate progress. Within 60 days of the date of this order, the head of agencies with responsibilities under this order shall submit a single combined report to the assistants to the President for Domestic Policy, detailing progress in implementing this order and a timeline for future action. The assistant to the President for Domestic Policy shall regularly convene the heads of agencies with responsibilities under this order to coordinate and prepare for this submission. Okay, so they're just setting a timeline here. Section 10, severability. If any provision of this order or the application of any provision to any person or circumstances is held to be invalid, the remainder of this order and any application of it or its other provisions shall not be affected thereby. Oh, I like this one. This one's saying, hey, we're just throwing out a bunch of like EOs here. If the courts take down any part of this, that doesn't prevent the other parts of it from being.
I guess that's about a fair summary, as I can expect from someone like this.
Enforced. Like, actually, this is a multi-headed hydra, you know? You would need to challenge every individual section of this executive order in order to stop the whole thing. You can't freeze the whole thing.
Probably a good thing, because we need to stop transitioning children, in my opinion.
Section 11, general provisions. A, nothing in this order shall be...
Yeah, like, he's reading it. I'm waiting for the why this is bad or whatever. You know what I mean? I just want to know what his actual opinion is.
...construed to impair or otherwise...
But hey, listen. I said that he seems to be just getting the Aaron Reed takes and not actually reading it. He is actually reading it at this point. Fair enough. I don't know. I got a 2-week suspension for Warcraft. I might need a wellness check. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
...wise effect. The authority granted by law to an executive department or agency or the head thereof, or the functions of the director of the Office of Management and Budget relating to budgetary, administrative, or legislative proposals. This order shall be implemented consistent with applicable law and subject to the availability of appropriations. This order is not intended to and does not create any right or benefit, substantive or procedural, enforceable law or inequity by any party against the United States, its departments, agencies, entities, officers, blah, 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 blah. Okay, this is procedural stuff right here. So, yeah, that pretty much describes the gist of it. Yeah, the last part is like standard legal boilerplate shit. Does Trump write these himself? No. So this is only for female to male? No. Why would this only be trans women? Female to male is trans men. Nuts. So when are they getting rid of circumcision to be consistent? I wouldn't hold your breath.
Getting rid of circumcision to be consistent. It's a very different issue. First of all, because, well, I don't know if I believe this, but people will they'll kind of downplay it to be like, oh, you're just cutting off the end of the foreskin, which I don't know how true that even is. I think there's probably a lot more to it than that. I probably don't support, like, circumcision. But the thing is, the US, like, it's very much, at least in red states and shit like that, it's about, like, religious freedom and stuff like that. It's about upholding people's right to live their life according to their religion. So it's a bit more complicated than something like trans, which... yeah, you could argue it's kind of a religion as well, but officially it's not. So there's no religious freedom that would affect that. Me personally, I'm not into circumcision. I don't think it's a good thing. But at the same time, the only reason you'd make this comparison is because you're trying to make out that it's not fair. When actually, really, if you're an honest person, you would be dealing with these two things separately. You know what I mean? Like, why would you want to get rid of transitioning children? Probably isn't quite the same as why you would want to get rid of circumcision. And you're dealing with very different groups. Like, one is like the Jews and lots of non-Jewish Americans for some reason. And the other is like the trans lobby. It's just, is two different issues ultimately.
Yeah, so that's pretty bad. That's
like, what is it? Is it normatizing, like putting things on a scale when you shouldn't necessarily be doing so? That's kind of how I see what they're talking about with the circumcision thing. I'm not for circumcising children either, but there's really no point in comparing the two. Like, you gotta actually talk about the issue and not just complain that, well, it's not fair because X, whatever. You know what I mean? In the UK, it's mostly Jews, or also some Muslims. Fair enough.
about as bad as it gets, to be honest with you. This is going to be held up in court, but...
Bad as it gets, why? Why are you invested in children transitioning, vaush?
I don't know if it's going to make much of a difference because there's going to be a chilling effect on the implementation of this, of any pediatric trans care, because no doctor is going to want to open themselves up to getting sued. Like, even if the executive order gets challenged in court, it doesn't change the fact that what doctor or hospital is going to open themselves up to the legal risk. It's not just a matter...
Oh, he's got a sick new tattoo. How long's that been there? Wow.
Of whether they'd be sued for the procedure. It's a matter...
I've dated two different guys with foreskin issues and wish they had been circumcised young. I'm conflicted on circumcision. Okay, fair enough. I'm not sure how I feel about it either, to be honest with you. And also, circumcision versus completely sterilizing yourself and changing your complete body before potentially deciding that you weren't happy with it, it's just not really quite the same thing. It's just not something we should be comparing. I think we should try and move away from the idea that we have to put everything on a scale, or if we're talking about trans kids, that we need to find something to put on a scale with it. That's not a very honest way of arguing, in my opinion, because often the arguments center around the thing that you put next to it on the scale and not the actual thing that you're talking about. Oh, well, it's not fair. Well, what if you don't think either of those things are good? What then? You know what I mean? You have to still come up with a position on the child transition thing. You can't just pick something else and say, well, this is legal, so that must be legal. Like, it's not really the honest way of arguing.
Matter of whether or not they're opening themselves up to a lawsuit for surgical malpractice years from now, potentially, you know? And that's not just for the youth either.
Nice whataboutism, vaush chat. I would probably agree to banning circumcision for children too. Yeah, exactly. Fucking hell.
A lot of this applies to everyone, all trans healthcare. Wait, would that be in the whole country? It's not just a matter of whether they'd be sued for the procedure. It's a matter of whether or not they're opening themselves up to a lawsuit for surgical malpractice years.
See, all of this, doesn't this all kind of point towards the fact that this trans kid stuff is very experimental and comes with all kinds of problems potentially? And they just forged ahead with it anyway without really considering a lot of this stuff. Like, you're worried about, like, people now not wanting to get sued. This was always going to happen based on the way that trans kids, like, the research and everything has gone, where we've got people like Joanna Olson Kennedy just sitting on big studies that they did. You know what I mean? It seems extremely deceptive, and it seems like we're basing a whole, like, cottage industry, a whole medical industry around transing kids on something that really has limited evidence in its favor. To me, this is like that kind of mentality that was inevitable, surely.
From now, potentially, you know? And that's not just for the youth either. A lot of this applies to everyone, all trans healthcare. Wait, would that be in the whole country? It is an executive...
I wonder if he's ever really looked at much like trans, like many studies about like trans kids and stuff like that. I wonder if he's looked at many of these things without the filter of someone like Aaron Reed, because that's probably a huge problem here, is like, oh, well, this trans person says so. And how many times have we fucking seen that, by the way? How many times have we seen one of these like bread tube dickheads? When it comes to trans takes, they just have like a few trans people that they just listen to, or they go and look at Aaron Reed and that's their source and that's their authority. Aaron Reed does not speak for every fucking trans person. Like, Jesus Christ. Whoever is in fucking Alec Gunter or Xanderhal or whoever the fuck's Discord that is in his ear, that is telling him how this shit works, or is like doing research for him, which could mean they're giving him all kinds of biased shit, quite frankly. They're not authorities. They don't speak for all trans people. It's wild. Like, you gotta think for yourself. You gotta look at the shit and come to your own conclusion. The problem is, someone like vaush is not gonna want to do that, because if he does that, he might look at stuff and be like, oh shit, there's some problems here. But that's going to immediately clash with his audience. Like, what, he's getting 50k views? He still gets okay, like, numbers, despite all the lolly shit from a year ago. I mean, it's a fucking cult at this point. It's about as much of an echo chamber as is possible to be, it seems. Listen, I haven't really been in his audience. I guess I don't know for sure. But like, oh my God. And yeah, he still gets decent like views. That would be incredibly, like, he'd compromise that by being honest at this point. Like, he's kind of fucked forever. He shouldn't be trusted or taken seriously by anything. He's captured.
Order from the office of the president, you know, that's federal. Yeah. It's about the implications. It's not even about the implications. It's just like straightforwardly the effect of what this will do.
I don't know how he can possibly say that this isn't inevitable based on like the science behind trans kids. Like, it should be obvious. But then if you've got Aaron Reed in your ear or whatever the fuck, you're not going to see it, I guess, are you? You're not going to see it because you've been duped.
You know, am I understanding correctly that even sanctuary states are here? Yeah, well, it would apply to them, you know, depending on how this all gets implemented. But yes, I don't like this administration. Are the eggs cheap yet? Washington State will sue. Yeah, all the transgenders are here. It doesn't even matter if they sue, though. Like, the chilling effect, like, whether or not they sue, it doesn't change the fact that no doctor, no hospital is going to want to provide these procedures or guidance. The president...
Yep, still, this was inevitable. This was going to happen because the science really wasn't on the trans kids' side as much as we wanted it to be, I guess. It doesn't seem like there's great evidence that it's actually helping people. And it seems like the detransition rate seems to be climbing. It seems like there's more and more of these kids coming out at the age of 19 or something with no tits, with fucked up ovaries because they've been on T for like 4 years. Like, that's just going to keep happening. It's just going to get worse and worse. This was an inevitability. Even if, like, even if Trump hadn't taken over, at some point it would have got to a point, should I say, where people start suing, where people start being extremely unhappy with the way things are going. They're already suing anyway, you know what I mean? Like, Trump has really just sped up the process. I don't know how the fuck he would say otherwise, except I do know, because he listens to people like Aaron Reed.
The president isn't allowed to create their own legislation without Congress. He doesn't need to. He's directing the attorney general to go after people who do this by redefining existing laws and threatening to withhold funding. It's not a matter of, like, again, it's unitary executive theory. The idea...
Are we going to pretend that he wouldn't like it if his side implemented fast executive orders? Yeah, of course he would. Yeah, definitely.
Is that if you break everything the right way, the president gets to do everything he wants. Could states refuse to enforce the laws? Listen to what I'm saying. It's about federal funding, disbursement of federal funding. Insurance follows federal guidelines in a lot of cases, and the attorney general redefining the interpretation of existing laws, going after...
I mean, really, we're making it seems like Trump kind of played a blinder here, but I guess we'll have to see. I'm not a Trump fan myself, but I agree with this, ultimately.
Hospitals and doctors that do this, you know? Whatever happened to that anti-sodomy Texas AG? Still there? Ken Paxton, you mean? The president's not allowed to do this, needs to leave everyone's mouth real quick. Well, it is important to keep reminding people. I'm just saying that, like, this is being done in such a way as to avoid creating new laws. Because, of course, the president is, at least nominally, not given the ability to make new laws. Pretty bad, guys. Pretty bad.
Why is it bad? Actually give a fucking... Oh my God. Actually give an opinion. Actually say what you think. Stop hinting. Like... What do people watch you for if not to give your opinions? Jesus fuck.
Good. This just happened. Do we have any news coverage of this, like on a video level? Any at all? Even a teensy tiny bit? Oh, sorry, I forgot.
God, he's worse than Xanderhal. Aaron Reed. Aaron in the Morning is a trans news source. This is who Aaron Reed is. Aaron in the Morning on Substack. It's a trans news source by someone called Aaron Reed. Extremely captured. Like, this person is full of shit, but everyone listens to them on trans issues. And I happen to, like, I know several different I have several different examples of this person printing, like, outright fucking lies. Like, look up the 216 errors in the WPATH files. That list of 216 errors does not exist. The only errors that exist are the ones that she actually does lay out in that article, of which there are like 10 or 12 or something. Some of which she's either wrong about or are so small fucking issues that I don't know why she'd include it, especially if she's trying to put her best foot forward. All suggests that it's all bullshit. Oh, and also Aaron Reed, I think, was sued by their ex-wife and prohibited from wearing their ex-wife's clothes anymore. So that's nice.
Public figure. I should be giving like advice. I should be saying stuff. Pretty bad, guys. It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. We don't really know what holes are going to get.
Actually give a statement on like, oh, it's pretty bad. Does he even think this? Or is he just saying this for his audience? Does he even give a shit?
Carved out in this, like to what extent the judges are going to be able to push back against it, like what in practice is going to be possible. Listen, all I have to say is this, literally all I have to say is this, okay? Never, ever, ever, ever look up or learn anything about DIY HRT. Just don't, never do it, you know, probably going to be in a fuzzy legal zone.
We know what he means by this, right? We know what he's saying. We know what he's saying. Yeah, just go and get DIY HRT. And I suppose technically he said don't do it, so if someone does it on the back of this and then gets seriously ill or dies or whatever, then it's not technically his fault. But hey, we know the truth. We know the truth.
For a while, we don't know what they're going to do with that. Never do it. Could be terrible. I've heard terrible things, okay? Even though the state...
How are you and Careful's doing, by the way, Vaush? How's your friendship with Careful's? Still going? Still going, yeah?
Oh, sorry, not the state. The state, I suppose.
What about Tipster?
Even though the state is doing what they can to make this impossible, they can't make it illegal for you to talk to your doctors or clinicians. I promise you that especially now, there will be people around who can provide guidance. Maybe they're medical experts. Maybe they work with NGOs, you know, maybe they're in advocacy groups, whatever.
It's so easy to do what he's doing here. He's not giving any opinions, just, oh, it's bad, oh, it's bad, oh, it's bad for his chat. Like, what's he fucking saying? What does he actually think about any of this? We're almost done. I have no idea. I know what Aaron Reed thinks of it, and he's saying he agrees, but that kind of seems like a way to avoid actually making any personal statements about it. So I'm very much not 100% sure that Vaush is like speaking from the heart whatsoever here.
You know, local guidance will always be something you can seek out, right? We're not on Gestapo shit just yet with regard to that. Also, you know what? Get into fashion. I'm not kidding. I genuinely, I'm going to lay this one down with a heavy hand, and I mean it, you know? See a lot of people in my community, a lot of people broadly. I see this as like a cultural thing. Most people dress like shit. You think you're transgender or whatever, and then you're still dressing like ass. You feel like shit. You don't know how to affirm your feelings of your identity through your clothing. They can't make that. Well, they can make that illegal, actually. They have made cross-dressing illegal, both historically.
Have they? Maybe.
And contemporarily. But you know what? Until they arrest you for it, you can try to learn to express yourself. Okay? And I don't just mean with a hoodie. Wear big pants.
Wow, amazing. What does Vaush actually think of this? Who fucking knows? To me, he is avoiding actually saying his own shit and using people like Aaron Reed for a reason. I said that he's been duped. I'm actually not sure that he isn't the one kind of duping people duping his audience, using Aaron Reed to say the shit that he doesn't want to say because he doesn't actually believe it, potentially. I'm just saying, this is my opinion. I don't know that for a fact. But this just seems like a grift to me. I don't trust a word this fucking guy says. Oh, and that's it. And hey, quite frankly, I'm not a Trump fan, I'll admit that, but I agree with this particular thing. I'm not down with kids transitioning. And the way it's gone, the kind of stuff that it's based on, like the science that it's actually based on, like all of this is completely like inevitable. All the shit he's saying about people not wanting to get sued and stuff, that was going to happen either way. Fucking Kamala Harris wins the election. I think it would have still happened because it just would have got worse and worse and worse. Yeah, there we go, Vaush. I think he's a grifter. I don't know what he actually thinks on this issue because he didn't say. Using Aaron Reed for his own fucking ends. How nice. How nice. Who's actually duping who? You know what I mean?